Let's have a look at the average person. Overweight, out of shape, no money in the bank. Is it really that hard to be somewhat successful? Don't be overweight, get some money in the bank, be disciplined, and try and have good habits. This is where you're getting it wrong. You're educating people who haven't yet been a doctor who's working 70 hours a week, undervalued, understaffed, underpaid. They don't know reality yet.
Tell us, what was the message behind that clip for anybody that hasn't seen it?
The last one in, first one out. All it means is the value of time. I was just super conscious of not giving someone my time and not being paid for it. If you don't have attention, all those other skill sets I mentioned, doesn't matter. You have to capture people and they have to be listening, because that's the biggest asset. And then when you get listening ears, and it's like controlled traffic. Well, there's 4 evaluations which I talk about. Number 1, you can't start a business if you can't manage your own money. Number 2 is social evaluation. Could you run a business if you're not around the right people? And then there's a time evaluation to manage your time. How do you actually manage time? And then there's...
So for somebody listening to this who might perhaps want to break out to the 9 to 5, but they have no idea how, where can they start?
Well, number 1, you just...
So Aaron, thank you so much for coming down to the studio. It's great to have you on, mate.
Pleasure, looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's great to have you on. I've seen a lot of your clips pop up over the past year or so. But for the viewers who might not know, who could be living under a rock, who is Aaron Knightley?
I'm going to do what I always do. Aaron Knightley is just Aaron Knightley. I don't go by a title. I don't go by a business. I feel like we're in a world where everyone loves the title and they love to scream about it. I'm just someone who's doing my thing and I'm very content in where I'm at, but I'm involved in business and entrepreneurship and being a creative.
Absolutely. So a big part of your message is trying to get people involved in working for themselves, becoming financially free. So where did it all start for you?
It all really, the wake up moment. I've always been very entrepreneurial from a young age. You know, I look back now and there were early signs in my early teens. But the changing, I suppose the defining moment was having my son at 20. So our son came into our lives at 20. And that was really kind of like a light bulb moment for me. So, you know, I think everyone has their light bulb moment. It happens later for some. I was lucky that it happened at 20. And then I just knew that a plan had to be put in place. I didn't know what the plan was, but I just started exploring entrepreneurship. I just started learning about business. We didn't have, you know, the abundance of like information that we do now. I started networking a lot. I started getting around the right people. I was quite happy to cut off people, and then that led me on the path of business. So when I knew that business was my thing, I was like, I need to get out the 9 to 5. I'm doing it, no matter how no matter how long it takes or whatever. And then that started me on this path.
How old are you now?
Where we are. I'm 32 now.
32, so 12 years ago. Because I was actually talking about this with someone this morning that I always knew from early doors I wanted a business from like 11, 12 years old. But I remember just not being able to figure out how to find what to do. Whereas now, like, you got to be living under a rock to not see all the opportunities. Because you get hit with adverts every day, like, property, drop shipping, I don't know, anything. Doesn't matter what it is. But I don't think it was as easy like 12 years ago. There was opportunities, but it wasn't in your face as much.
No, we weren't aware of it, and the learning wasn't so fast. I think that's the thing. If you wanted to change your social circle, you couldn't, you know, geographically, we were more having to go to places to meet people and actually spend that time and effort. Whereas now, you know, you can join an online community and meet great people. But, you know, YouTube, yes, it was about, was there as much information and podcasts? No.
Definitely not.
Audible wasn't about. So, yeah, I mean, that's why now my kind of view and opinion is that there are no excuses. You know, when you're willing to own your entire life and commit, you can go on to do great things. And as I'm sure we'll talk about in this podcast, the opportunity, like, is massive. Massive.
Yeah, I think, and there's opportunities that can reflect most skill sets as well, I think. Like, it doesn't matter if you're very, I don't know, bubbly person, maybe you can do social media. If you're not, if you're more like, I don't know, let's say operationally, you can do drop shipping. You don't need to have your face on the camera. Like, there's something for everyone. You just got to figure out what it is. That's probably the hardest thing.
One thing I've learned now, anything can be a career. Anything can make money. If you know how to brand, you know how to market, and you know how to sell, and you've got a little bit of clout, and you can gain attention. Attention's like the key metric. If you don't have attention, all those other skill sets I mentioned doesn't matter. You have to capture people and they have to be listening, because that's the biggest asset. And then when you get listening ears, then it's like controlled traffic. Then you can start to divert people where you want them to go and show them what you want to see. But yeah, can you make anything into a moneymaker? I believe so.
Yeah, some
I believe so as well. I mean, we had a great guy on our podcast maybe 6 months ago called Tom Flips. He makes 10K plus a month from selling sofas on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
You know, which really puts into perspective, as long as you've got a van and you've got Facebook, you could still make 10,000 a month cash, you know.
I think so. One thing that I talk a lot about at the moment is that there's loads of problems in the workplace, right? There's loads of studies and surveys showcasing that people are unhappy, right? I think because there's so much information, people are like, why am I putting up with it when I'm seeing people in front of me make change? Now, there's a difference. Can everyone run a business? No, because some people just do not have the capabilities. Quite frankly, there are incompetent, thick people out there. That's just the honest truth, right? Not everyone can run a business. Could everyone replace the average 1,500 or $2,000 a month? Yeah. I mean, that's minimal. Like, you know, I'm not to poo-poo $2,000 a month exchanging 180 hours. But when you can rack that in a day or a week, you could replace the 9 to 5. So you do have to think, you know, if you're not happy where you are, or you want a little bit more, or you want to collect some of that money that's on the table, no one's stopping anyone. Like, this is fair game to everyone. Once upon a time, it wasn't quite fair game, but now this is a game of poker that everyone can play. And even if you haven't got a good hand, you could still win. But you've got to be involved. You've got to do the work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, running businesses has changed all of our lives in this room. It's changed my life massively. But I guess the counter to that would be, you do still have a percentage of people that are in careers that are fairly happy and they do okay. So do you feel like you can still have a prosperous life working a 9 to 5?
So I had, and tying it into answering your question, so I had someone message me the other day in the comments section who said about one of my pieces of content, which said, you know, I think I said something like, I've never met someone who wants to be a doctor. I've never met any 12-year-old, 13-year-old, someone who's up and coming and, you know, going through the school system or whatever, that's really eager to be a doctor. And this guy said to that piece of content, you know, well, I educate people who are going on to be doctors. And I'm like, no, this is where you're getting it wrong. You're educating people who haven't yet been a doctor, who's working 70 hours a week, undervalued, understaffed, underpaid. They don't know reality yet. But you ask that individual that you're educating now, in 15 years' time of doing that job, are they glad they're a doctor? Whilst their friends, who might have been me or you, went on to build their own thing and now living a life of freedom in some capacity, do they still want to be a doctor? 9 times out of 10, it's like, no, I'm on antidepressants, I've lost my hair, I'm falling out with my partner at home, but hey, I'm a doctor. So I think people don't know. This is the thing. I don't think people push boundaries enough to go, yeah, I'm in a career, but just what if? What if I bet on myself just for 12 months? What if I work a job that I'm happy in and, you know, it pays the bills, but what if I just push myself a little bit more as a human being, knowing that I could? That's what most don't do. So that that plays on me, the what if, the fear of not ever trying. And I think you can say you're happy in a career, but I don't know. I don't think I'll ever meet anyone that's happy in a career for 30 years solid.
Yeah, I also think in the UK now, especially with the cost of living crisis, it's really fucking hard to survive if you don't run a business. Maybe if you're in sales. I've got some friends that do exceptionally well in sales and they're employed. That's not really a 9 to 5. Like, they're still working 12, 15-hour days. So for somebody listening to this who might perhaps want to break out to the 9 to 5, but they have no idea how, where can they start?
Well, number one, you just start. You know, you have some form of a concept. You pick the thing that you think you would love doing and that you have, you know, you've got to play against natural qualities, right? You can't, I think this is the other thing as well. Everyone's so susceptible and influenced by adverts. You just mentioned it about adverts. You know, an advert pops up and it's like, oh, I'm going to do e-com. But do you even know if you like e-com? So there's that evaluation. Well, there's 4 evaluations which I talk about, and that is financial evaluation. So number one, you can't start a business if you can't manage your own money. That's number one. We were talking about that downstairs, right? I've always managed my money very well. Number two is social evaluation. Could you run a business if you're not around the right people? It'd be borderline impossible. You don't really see too many successful business owners that are still surrounded by employees. So there's that element of it. And then there's a time evaluation to manage your time. How do you actually manage time? And then there's your self-evaluation. Are you even cut out to run a business? Those are 4 evaluations that you need to do before you ever step into business. And then you play against your strengths, right? What am I good at? What do I love? What problem would I like to solve? And what could I stick at for 5 years and be prepared not to be paid? And that's where I would start. I wouldn't look at anything else other than doing those 4 things and focusing on something where you're not going to get paid for at least 5 years.
Okay. Yeah. It makes sense. I feel like one of the biggest lies in entrepreneurship is start a business to have more freedom, which you do have a degree of more freedom, but I think it's like you said, the first 2, 3, 4 years is war every day and it's huge amounts of sacrifice. So when do you think that balance comes into play? Because, for example, all of my friends went out for a curry last night and they were getting on a tequilas on a Tuesday, and I thought that sounds really fun, but I've also got these 5 projects that need to be done and no one else is going to do them except from me. So when do you think that kind of breakthrough moment is where you actually have more time?
Quick pause from the podcast to give a special shout out to one of our sponsors, the Rejuvenation Doctors. The Rejuvenation Doctors is a hair transplant clinic in the northwest of England, in Bury, owned by Dr. Jamie. Now, I can personally vouch for these guys, as I myself, around 2 weeks ago, had a hair transplant from Dr. Jamie. The service was amazing, it was very VIP. He looked after me, and boys, if your hairline's going back, if you're receding, if you've got that McDonald's hairline, don't wait until it's too late. Get it sorted today. Dr. Jamie's details will be in the description of the podcast. Make sure you mention that you heard about him through the Multipliers Club, and he will sort you out.
When you leave a 9 to 5, and I did a video on YouTube most recently, because there wasn't really many videos out there. When you leave a job, for example, you're given this 180 hours back, right? So let's say you do 40 hours a week, right? So you've got 180 hours in your pocket now. What do you do with it? Do you just work every hour? You have the blessing of being able to work in the pockets, but your pockets are hyper productive. So when you really nail structure and your time management and you kind of know what you're doing and you've got your priorities in the right order, you can work in the morning, you can work in the evening, you can have a little break and you can go out with the missus, with your children or whatever. So you fit your business around your lifestyle, and that's why they're called lifestyle businesses now. So no, the first 2-3 years are really tough, but you still have far more flexibility than a job. And the key is you don't ask permission for a day off. As soon as you go and work for yourself, the only person you have to ask permission for a day off is yourself. You don't answer to anyone. So yes, the first 2-3 years are going to be tough, but you're still living life on your terms. But dependent on the business model, you can pretty much integrate autonomy immediately. Like immediately, you don't need to kind of figure it out a year later. You can, automate pretty much everything, and that makes your life so much easier.
That is so true. Like me and Luke, we have quite a lot of fun outside of business. Like we travel a lot, we go on a lot of holidays. There's no way we'd be able to go on as many holidays as we went on even last year if we were still in a job. So there are certain sacrifices you make with business, but you get so much back as well in terms of freedom.
Even just being able to go to go and get your haircut when you want to, rather than having to fit it in between after work when everyone's really busy, or on a Friday when it's
or the Saturday. You know how busy a barber's is on a Saturday, right?
You can just go and get it done quick and then come back.
Yeah, just small things like that, and not having to ask permission for it. Like I go to the gym twice a day. I love my gym. I drop my son off every day. I pick him up. We go on lovely family holidays when we want. The other thing is as well, you have purpose. I think that's the other thing. Like if we look at this from a mindset aspect, you're never becoming you're always challenging yourself. Like one thing I found, and I would talk to people, co-workers, there's not much up top. They kind of zone out because it's that Groundhog Day, it's the hamster wheel, and conversation there's no growth. There's nothing challenging about conversation. Whereas when you work for yourself and you really take on that responsibility, you are developing because you have to. Otherwise, your business will fail. So I think that's a healthy thing for a human being, is you are constantly pushing yourself. And let's have a look at the average person. Overweight, out of shape, no money in the bank. Is it really that hard to be somewhat successful, however you define that? Don't be overweight, get some money in the bank, be disciplined, and try and have good habits. Done. You know, so look, I think you've got two choices. You can design your life or you can be assigned one. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Let's talk about the workplace, right? So the average workplace, what do you feel like's wrong with it? Like, what would you change about the workplace if you could?
I think there are many problems. I talk about it all in my content, but not valued, not paid enough, no respect. I don't know. I haven't really got too much good to say about the workplace because there are so many negatives.
So your most viral moment, and you've had quite a few over the past year or so, got over 400 million, was it TikTok views? I think it was TikTok views, right?
In total, yeah. So combined, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok and on YouTube, that one video, last one in, first one out, did over 400 million. At the moment, what I can track, yeah, in total is nuts.
So tell us, what was the message behind that clip for anybody that hasn't seen it?
So last one in, first one out. All it means is the value of time. Like, you know, I didn't go in early. I certainly didn't stay late. One, because I was working on my own thing, but also I was just super conscious of not giving someone my time and not being paid for it, or going above and beyond for someone that could literally get rid of me, manage me out of a company. And ultimately, you know, they didn't respect or value most of the employees there. So I did a video on last one in, first one out. And, you know, it really separated off the boomers to, you know, Gen Z and I suppose the newer generations to who actually think, well, yeah, I'm not going to give extra time. That video just did very well because it literally did split off older generation versus the new generation. And there was me bang in the middle, stirring it up, essentially. But I back every word because I live that. So, yeah, it's just value of time. In my last job, I literally was 2 minutes before I could clock out. Mate, I was at that clock out machine sitting there and waiting. So, yeah.
What was it you done before entrepreneurship?
I was in logistics and scheduling. So, it was a logistical company.
Okay.
It was like super easy work, a lot of laptop base. I had like a team as well. So, super simple. My job, look, I actually enjoyed my last job. Ironically, you know, the amount of content that I do, I did enjoy my job. I just could not stand office politics. Hated it. Couldn't stand office politics.
Office politics. So give a couple of examples of what you experienced and what you think a big problem is with the workspace with office politics.
Just power hungry, that, you know, and inexperienced. Like, I think the thing with a lot of like managers, they love that word manager. And I just never wanted to pander to it. Like, I didn't want to be a part of rubbing someone's ego when we're all human beings. Doesn't matter about the salary, doesn't matter about the title. You know, everyone should have fair respect across the board. And that was never there. So number one, that was just not something I was okay with. And the other thing is as well, is just knowing that at any given moment, I could be out of a job. Company restructure, manage you out of a company, PIPs, you know, performance improvement plans. So I just wasn't comfortable. I suppose the thing with me and anyone else listening is like, if you want control, you know, when you run a business, you are taking responsibility and you have that control. I was prepared to always take control for my actions and where I wanted to go. And I was always, every time you step into that workplace or that office, you're giving away all of your control for 8-10 hours. I was never comfortable with that. So that's why I was just making a plan to always get out as soon as I could.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, your first point is so interesting because I've seen this. I saw it happen when I was in employment. You know, you sometimes work with a co-worker, they're on the same level as you. Then they get a promotion to that title. They get the manager title and they just turn into a complete dick. It's like they get this, what's the word? It's called a power kick,
power
right?
hungry, innit?
Yeah.
Power hungry. So that's a crazy thing.
It's like just mad how like someone can suddenly just... They just start talking to you differently. I'm like, why do you need to? I don't understand. Because you imagine now you suddenly talk to me like a dickhead. Like,
yeah, but this is.
Well, you don't need to.
Yeah, but
we're just
this
people.
is the problem. This is the problem, isn't it? It's like slave to the wage. It's all true. Like, we're not saying this stuff to be gimmicky, right? This is real stuff. Like wage slave, it's real. People. It's shiny penny syndrome. You know, we see it in business. People see, you know, different business models and then they become attached to it. And then that's what they want because that's what they think they want. Promotion, shorter puppet strings. very, very hard to come away from a promotion. You know, when you take on those extra responsibilities, you're going up into that very acute, you know, angle that you can never come back down from, and they can't see it because, I mean, look, human beings love power. That's kind of the build and destruction of human beings, is that we love power, right? Everyone loves to be at the top. But when you go to the top, it's incredibly toxic and there's a lot of problems. The main issue is, right, which I see with most individuals in the workplace, is look how many people are suffering with like anxiety and depression. I would love to see a study, and I've never looked this up, how many people in business in the modern day and age that we live in, I'm not on about the 80s and 90s, how many people have depression in business in today's day and age compared to in employment? I'll bet your last bottom dollar it's in employment. I mean, the World Health Organization, the WHO, did a study, and it was 291 million people were clinically diagnosed with depression because of the workplace.
Wow.
That's only clinically diagnosed. It's going to be hundreds of millions of more individuals. So I don't know, you know, like, are people really happy? I did a video yesterday, just to give you some context, right? There was this lady on YouTube who said, I'm sick of seeing people talk about running a business and getting out the 9 to 5. I could see in her eyes and I could hear in her voice, she's tried and she failed. So now she's projecting her insecurities about business and getting out the 9 to 5. Had she been successful, I bet it would have been a different video.
So with this message that you preach, right? So now, like, you have employees, right? Or knowing all this, how would you, because obviously you run a business, you're going to need employees, but you know all this happens in employment, people aren't happy, etc. What do you do as an employer, or what would you do?
Oh boy, I've been asked this so many times.
Oh, really?
I've done this in long form videos. So number one, I don't have employees. Okay. I have team members. No one works for me, people work with me. Like, this is the thing. If I'm going to talk about this and it was a problem for me, I'm certainly going to be a part of the change, right? So that's where I just humble pie everyone. I don't have employees. I have team members. I treat everyone with the same respect that I do anyone else. I am not, just because we started a business doesn't make us any better than a cameraman or a cleaner or anyone, right? We're all human beings. So that's what I live by. In terms of, you know, people that I work with, here's the thing, right? I look for people that want flexibility as well, people who work remote. Again, I'm not looking to take people on full-time because I also don't want the responsibility of having people full-time. I want people to work with me to then be able to scale their thing that they're great at and then to go off and do their own thing, which, you know, circling back around, I only want to build businesses that have autonomy. I don't want to have meetings every week. Like, if you ask me, the perfect business model is where you wake up, 70% of your business is already done, you do 15% marketing, and the final 15% is possibly strategic business meetings. That's literally all I want to do now. And occasionally come to podcasts and speaking gigs and do PR stuff. Other than that, I don't really want to be boots on the ground. I don't want to have employees and stuff like that. I want to earn as much money as I can just through autonomy.
It's talking about the money, right? So I heard in one of your clips that you're not so much into materialism. So what drives you to do well? Like, what's your vice? What do you make money for?
Do you know what it is for me? I actually get a buzz knowing that if I stop today, I wouldn't have to do anything for years. I just love that. Like, I like sitting here, and I don't know your financial circumstances, but I know here, if I just suddenly decided to stop, me and my family were okay. I like that. Whereas I've sat down with people who wearing Gucci and stuff like that, and I just think, I'm surviving. Like, whatever comes my way financially, I'm surviving. I like that. You know, it's a bit of clout. It's like, it's confidence. I've never been bothered about clothes or materialistic things. I like the fact that I go to sleep every night and I don't worry about, you know, the fake cost of living crisis, you know, the media driven cost of living. You know, when we talk about prices going up, I don't know, have they? Have prices gone up? I don't know. Like, I'm genuinely asking you, have they gone up?
They have.
I don't know.
They've definitely gone up. Everything's gone up. I don't think it's as noticeable though if you're making good money.
Here we go.
You know,
that's the thing. Politics. What's going on in politics? I don't know. I literally don't know. I don't watch the news. I don't listen to the news. I don't listen to the radio. I don't know. I just focus on being smarter with money. Cash flow's king. I'm good at defense financially, but also I'm very good at being offensive. And I just like knowing that every day I'm attacking it and I'm bringing in more cash flow. I stack it heavily. And one of the luxuries is, we like to go out for nice food of an evening. But yeah, I don't know. Has bread gone up? Don't know. Has petrol gone up? No idea. Because I don't focus on that. Like, I just love to keep moving. Even like in the gym, I don't track my weight. I just look in the mirror, right? Need to chisel that up, need to lose a little bit here. And then I go to the gym and I just go and do it. I love it.
Going back to the the news, the politics side. So you're a business owner. You've done exceptionally well for yourself. Do you ever look at politics from a financial perspective in terms of who's going into power, tax laws?
No, because I can't change it. I control the controllables. Again, this is a big part of my content, and this is kind of like empowering people to take ownership. Control the controllables. You don't like your job, you can control that. If you don't like your partner, you can control that. No one's forcing you to be with your partner. If you don't like your school or whatever it might be, you can control all these kind of things. Can I control who's in government? No. Can I control what Trump's doing? Nope. Although get Trump in the UK. Can I control Keir Starmer? Would love to, but I can't. So I don't worry about it.
Do you vote?
No. Don't vote. It means I've got to do something logistically that really it's not going to have an impact. I don't talk about politics too much, but the UK's gone down the Swanee. I will, my family and I will be leaving the UK at some point. I control what I can control. I literally don't take any notice. My life is literally London, home, gym, London, home, gym, London, home, gym. I don't do anything else. I try to deal with as little people as possible. And that's probably the reason why, I've managed to do all right.
Well, it's funny how it works. If you turn off the news, everything's fine, right?
Yeah, literally.
One of my old mentors told me, he's like, you need to program your own mind or your mind will be programmed for you. Yeah. So I do think it's wise to try and ignore certain narratives. From my perspective, I probably get a little bit too wrapped up in politics from like a tax perspective because we're not millionaires yet, but we're doing quite well in terms of revenue wise in business. And we're just getting absolutely from it.
Yeah, I've got friends that are doing millions a month and they're moving to Dubai, Cyprus, because they're paying 75p to the pound. Yeah, it is. We're being bent over a barrel, but you can't. This is the thing. You can't do anything about it. That's the thing. Unless you start doing things illegally, you can't do anything about it. So you can only control everything around you. But the first thing to do is switch it all off. Like even, if you're trying to get out of a job, if you're trying to start a business, you're starting a new relationship, whatever is creating negative noise, you zero tolerance it. Immediately you zero tolerance it. And then your life just naturally becomes purer. And I think the other thing as well, which I've learned as I'm getting older, I'm becoming more intolerable with people in terms of I value my time so much. I don't entertain, did you hear what happened? I don't want to know. Even just hearing your moany, whining voice, I don't want to know. I do not want to know what you're about to say. There's something called, TG, TGU. I'm pretty sure it's TGU. Is it the truth what you're about to tell me? See what someone says. Is it good what you're about to tell me? Is it useful? And you can kind of run that metric, that acronym, I suppose, to everyone. Before you talk to me, I just want to know, is it the truth? Is it good? Is it useful? 9 times out of 10 people go, well, no, I suppose not. I don't want to know then. It has no relevance to me. That's kind of how, me and my family live our life. Like, yeah, just... Also, do you know what I find healthy? Become more introverted. You'll be far more successful the more introverted you become. Be an extrovert in terms of like networking, but then working. When you're working, stop showing social media all the work that you're doing. Become introverted, go into a bubble, get the work done, complete it, get proof of concept, and then feed it back to the market. Be introverted, like work, do the thing that you're putting off, and then stuff happens.
You've obviously done really well with social media, right? So I mean, how many followers have you got across your different platforms?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe just over 500,000.
500,000, yeah. And when did you kind of start that whole process of like?
Well, gosh, I did a video on my YouTube about this the other day, which was called Start Posting, Lessons from 8,000 Posts. Again, patience, no guarantees, just doing the work. I've posted over 8,000 times. I've been on YouTube 5.5 years. It's only just paying off now, YouTube. I'm starting to grow rapidly. Like, I'm probably doing 1,000 subs a week now. I've been on YouTube 5.5 years. I did 900 posts on TikTok before I blew up. I've done over 3,000 posts on Instagram before I, sort of had success nearly at 50K on Instagram. Like, I've been in this time in the market, investing. I've just been doing the work, like in volume as well, with no guarantees. And it's paid off in every aspect. Branding, business, lead gen, database, like instant cash, it pays off. Like, my TikTok alone does like 4 to 7 grand just in views a month. I do a video a day now. Like, I mean, it's laughable. So
it's 100% the like compound effect we will talk about a lot. Compound effect of it, it's like to get to, I don't know, wherever it is, your 1K followers, it might take you this long, but then to get to your 3K is actually half the time, and then to get to 10K is half time, and you really do see it. But I think a lot of people, and we've all been there as well, like it's hard when it's just nothing's happening, and it's just and a lot of people just stop. But then a lot of time when you ask them, how many videos did you actually put out? I like 10. I'm like, yeah, but that's not like, how can you judge something on 10 videos or even 30 videos? Like, you got to do it for a long time to judge it.
It's exactly that. It's, I run 2 very unique programs, highly successful. One of them's called the Breakout Program. The other one's called the TikTok Growth Program. I have members that are doing 20K months now, like legit, because they are committed to doing what I've taught them. And that is honestly hyper niching, serving a customer, problem solving, and volume and commercial positioning. Like, that's something that I've done very well. Brand deals now, I get offered, many brand deals a week. And my first brand deal, I charged £75 for a 160-second video. And most brand deals now, they want between 60 and 90 seconds for a video. Now I'm charging anywhere between £4,000 to £5,500 for a 60-second video. Now, that's big bucks to us, but that's peanuts to the company, because they're thinking, well, he's going to hit X amount, the engagement's high, they listen to him, and they convert, which what we pay him will get paid back in one deal, or whatever it might be, or however they're seeing that return on investment. But there's big bucks to be made, like super amounts of money. But compound effect, like doing it with no guarantees.
So where do people start now? Like, let's say someone, most people know roughly what they do. They've got the niche, etc. But now it's like, do they go TikTok? Do they go Instagram? Do they do lives? Is that a big part? Like, can you give some real tips and advice around this?
Yeah, I would just say you have to nail one platform, but then also you have to play against the strengths. Is Instagram giving organically? No. I've done well on Instagram over the last few weeks, where I'm racking up like 6 million views a week now. It's taking off like by the day. But it's not giving normally. But then again, I've done over 3,000 posts, and I'm only now seeing the benefits on Instagram. Whereas TikTok, it's fair game for anyone. You can go wide and deep if you know what to do, and you really solve like not a global problem, but if you resonate with millions, right, you can really blow up and you can really see success. YouTube, I don't know if you guys, how much you hammer YouTube, but you'll know it's the mothership, but my God, it's not giving. Like, they want you to work for it. Yeah. If you're going to take off on, like I said, Jason, one of my best mates, but also my mentor, he was on it for 8 years. And then, in 1 year did, like I say, over $12 million, 8 years, 8 years, but was it worth $12 million? Yeah, I'd do something for 8 years to make $12 million in 11 months. So my tips are start hyper niche and just solve a problem and work on a 90-10 ratio. And I call that 90% give, 10% ask.
Just to counter that, right? Because I do agree. I've seen the power of personal branding. It's what built our marketing company to where it is today. But then if you're a boring person, then surely they shouldn't do a brand. Because we've all seen those guys who are posting every day and they're getting like 20 views, right? What would be your kind of message to them?
Totally right. if you're boring, don't bother. But then I think if you're boring, you shouldn't run a business, because even when it comes to meetings and stuff, if you're boring, people are now buying from people more than they ever have done before. Service, product, whatever you're selling, it's from the person. And if you are boring as hell, if I met someone face to face, I thought, I love your service or product, or I was going to invest in them, and I thought, you're so boring. I wouldn't. Because I don't have to now. I just wouldn't. If they are boring, I just would not get involved. And I even joke around with my business partner, and I'm like, mate, change your pitch, in like your voice or whatever. Like sometimes if he's going on about something, I'll be like, dude, throw an F-bomb out or something, like sometimes you've got to spice it up. And yeah, it's tough. Like if you don't have flair and a bit of charisma, stay in a job and be grateful you've got a job, because you need a bit of clout.
Yeah. I do think though, if someone's introverted, they could still run a business, even if they are a bit boring. Just maybe not something that's too client facing. Like they could still they could do like FBA, they could do drop shipping. There's still avenues, I suppose. Maybe just not for the personal brand route.
Agreed.
Perhaps.
Yeah, agreed. If it's kind of that lone wolf, lone survivor kind of business where you can operate either in a very small team that doesn't require too much face-to-face stuff, but in terms of building something sustainable online and something that could really turn into something quite incredible, you need other people around you. You need to pull levers. You need to have charisma. You do need to be a key person of influence. Daniel Priestley's a friend of mine, but also I've done interviews. He's spoken on our stage. That is a great case study of someone who is the ideal key person of influence. He has been able to pull levers by being a people's person his whole entire career, and is now super, super successful. So I would always play in the favour of trying to be, someone who's got a voice, confident, stepping outside the comfort zone and willing to put their neck on the line a little bit and be a bit controversial. If you can just be on that line, you just outperform the person who's a little bit reserved. I don't want to say that. That's why I'm going places and you're not.
I think a lot on TikTok, like a lot of your videos, I guess that they are controversial because they're touching a nerve with people, right?
Yeah.
So, but that, I mean, I haven't even looked at your comments, but I can just imagine what's there. But the comments, but that's what actually ends up getting you they're paying you. You're getting paid because of these people that hated on you, but you're actually, they don't realise it's putting money in your pocket.
Yeah, mate, and you would only see the approved comments. If I go to my little review comments section, you'll probably get, when I see this guy, I'm going to chin him. And do you know what? I've had many of that. Good luck. But even then, you think, well, there's a lot of emotionally triggered people out there. If you really want to blow up on a brand, and then you want to really create that divide of, raging loyal followers against people who are like, you can't say that, which you can. You really have to have what's called push and pull. You have to get people thinking and emotions being triggered. Because if you don't drive traffic like a business. There has to be a reason why people are stopping and listening to what you're saying. This is all a game, by the way. Like all of this is all a poker game. You don't have to have the best hand, but you have to know how to play.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of see business as a game. Like a lot of people are just addicted to video games, playing Grand Theft Auto. Well, imagine if you could play it in real life. But, like that whole kind of ethos of you can create a life by design as long as you put in the work and work hard, right? So a good question for me to ask for the viewers to listen as well is, you see a lot of misinformation on social media about how much money somebody needs to make to live a fulfilled life, right? What is that number to be comfortable, do you think?
Well, it's circumstances, isn't it? And it's responsibilities of what you have, a family life to someone who's single living at home. It's so different. But, there was a study done that the average person wouldn't need more than £6,000 a month to live a very comfortable life. I think number one really about finances and knowing your number is actually working out what is it you actually want. Like that's the thing. So this number of, what do you want to earn from social media and how much is the perfect number? I don't think there's an answer to that. I think really what it comes down to is what's going to give you that freedom and that flexibility to go off and do all the things that you want to do. You know, are you still living a single life, or are you a family man or a family woman? These are the kind of things. But the money is there to be made. Like, yeah, if you do want to earn 5, 10, 15K a month, you know, knuckle down, and that's what you can do. But what do you want to do with 15K a month? What are you going to go and spend it on? That's the other thing. It can lead to like serious problems. Like, you go and give 15 grand a month to someone who hasn't got a Scooby-Doo. That could be the death of them. Like, it could be problems.
Yeah. A lot of people that win the lottery, I think most, can't remember the statistic, they actually end up broke in a couple of years.
70% of the lottery winners, yeah.
Yeah, that's so insane, isn't it? It's crazy. Why do you think that is? Do you feel like maybe they feel like they didn't earn it, or?
No, I think it's just, I think belief systems around money. I think number one is they have no control. So there is no concept of how quick. I mean, let's put it this way. If you took £1 million now, and you went into London and you stayed over in London a few nights, you could go through £1 million. Like, you could really get excited and go through £1 million. And I think that's what happens is you can burn through cash as quick as it can land in that bank account. Like, you can literally burn through cash. So I think that's where that stems from, is a lack of control. And again, the key word, discipline. But again, relationship with money, like, what is your relationship with money? Like, what's your relationship with money? My relationship with money, if I answer first, is that it provides me with contentment. I don't worry. I don't have to answer to anyone. And that's it. I don't have to conform. I can do as I please without worrying about paying bills. That's what it is for me. So whatever that number is, as long as I can always do those things, I'm winning. If that's 10K a month, fine. If it's 17 the next month, fine. As long as I can do all those things, it doesn't matter about the number.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. I think, Luke, you've always had a good relationship with money. Like, Luke's always done well from an early age. You know, he used to sell Christmas trees when it was Christmas, sledges when it snowed. And this is from the age of, like, I'm talking, he was doing this when he was like 7 or 8 years old. And I remember even when you started to have more money than everybody else, you would never really buy yourself much clothes. You know, you always kind of had that mindset, right? Like, what do you think kind of drove that mindset for you?
I think I just always wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. Like, I remember one time when I just couldn't afford to buy the PlayStation game. Like, I just couldn't afford. I didn't have the money. I was young. I'm like, that's annoying. Like, it's not even that much, but why can't I do that? And then that always drove me. Like, if I want to do something, I want to be able to do it, and it's my choice if I can buy it or not. I don't want it to be like, oh, I can't. That's out of my reach.
Independence.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
control.
And not someone else to buy it for me either. Like, I liked buying it myself. Like, I liked wanting to try and save up that money to get that thing because I felt like I earned it.
But that's the common thing through people who tend to go on to build businesses, is you want that independence. You don't want to put that in someone else's hands. You don't want to say to someone, could you get that for me? And they go, well, maybe next week. And then you're hanging on for that someone. And then it becomes, you know, the desperation. Like, I think also it's avoiding desperation. You know, look at needing a job. Like, people who live paycheck to paycheck, just put yourself in their shoes. And I've seen it firsthand. It's the need and the competitiveness and the desperation that I will do anything to keep this job. And if I've got to turn on everyone, they're willing to do that because of the need for that one source of income, which puts someone in such a vulnerable position, which then, again, ties into my content. Are we not going to weigh up here what the biggest risk is? Is the biggest risk not giving everything away and you being at the mercy of someone else every single day? And let's remember, everyone's runway, as you get older, gets shorter and shorter. So as the runway gets shorter and shorter, I did a video which did a few million about lifers. Lifers are very dangerous people in the workplace because their runway is getting shorter.
What do you mean by lifer?
So a lifer in the workplace is someone who has been in their job for 20, 30 years.
Oh, okay.
And they're aware that they've overinvested a lot of time, right? So their runway becomes shorter. They're not going to get another job. And their skill sets are probably very limited, and they only know the one task at hand, which is the job that they've done for the last 30 years. They become a very dangerous individual, and typically they've molded to a character that they don't even know anymore. But they have to now keep their job. The desperation is real because they're like, I'm at a certain age. I need to brown nose. I need to be the yes man or yes woman. I need to keep this job. No new graduates or anyone is going to come in and outperform me or jeopardize my job. and this is a state of a lot of people, is that it's fight or flight. And again, going back to the like you wanting a game, you know, and being able to pay for it yourself, it's taking that financial dependency back and saying, if anyone talks to me bad in the workplace, I have the money to bugger off at any moment. I think that's what we all want. We want that financial comfort and freedom, and that's what business brings. I don't like saying to people that I'm a business owner. It does nothing for me. It doesn't tickle me.
I resonate with that actually, because you know when like you might go on holiday with your missus, you always make holiday friends by the pool.
Yeah.
And I met this super cool guy called Lewis, other than the fact he was a Brighton fan and I'm Palace, but we won't talk about that. And he just worked in a restaurant, right? And we had a super good vibe. He was like, what do you do? And obviously in my mind, I'm like, I run a business with like 16 staff, but I was like, I'm in sales. I'm in sales and marketing. He was like, oh, cool. And then like 3 or 4 days went by, we just like proper bromance, right? And then he must have looked me up online and found my social media, and he said to me over a beer, he was like, mate, you never told me that you ran a business and a marketing company and a podcast. And I just said to him, I was like, mate, I just didn't want to be, you know, because it still feels quite uncomfortable for me. I don't want anyone to feel like I think I'm above them ever. Like if you're a nice person, then we're on the same level in my eyes.
Yeah,
you know?
I try and avoid those. I mean, I don't really interact on that level anyway. I kind of, when people ask what I do, I just say, to be honest, I do so many things. Where do I begin? But I just say I'm in socials and I do a bit of entrepreneurship stuff. And then I kind of just leave it there, because it's another thing as well where it can cause a divide.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like politics and religion. It's like if you're getting on with someone and you've found a mutual bit of synergy, I just avoid all the other stuff, because I'm like, we don't want to go into the whole who's got the biggest wang here.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
and that can happen if you start throwing that stuff into it, which again is one of the things I couldn't stand in the 9 to 5. And there's a guy, I'll say his first name, he was called Dan. Every time he got a promotion, and they didn't know I was building a business at the time, but every time this guy got a promotion, he'd be on the shop floor and he would openly say it to everyone, just got that job, didn't I? Gone up to £47,000 now. and he'd be like, and I barely do anything. And I used to be like, people like you that I just, and you have no idea what I'm doing behind the scenes, but it is people like you that are honestly driving me to be successful.
Yeah.
Because you are such a, you're £47,000 a year or whatever you're on now. Like, it's such a clout and ego chaser, and I just wanted no part of it. But it divides people, right?
Yeah.
It just instantly, it's like, chests are puffing out now, so I avoid it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's the best philosophy. Like, even when I see, other than 2 or 3 really close friends, the boys we do the podcast with, I'll openly talk about the revenue we're doing, like sales we're doing. But then like for a lot of friends that I have, they're like, oh, how's business? So I'm always like, yeah, it's going well. But what about your thing though? Like I want to try and just divert that, because the worst thing is we're all ambitious people, and people who might not potentially have that same ambition, or maybe they do, they just don't believe they can get it. If you talk to them about your goals, you're going to sound like you're bragging. And really you're not bragging, you're just kind of talking about your map of the world, but their map of the world's very different. You know?
I have categories for different types of conversation. My social circle now is like super, super small and restricted, and I have a really tight bubble. No one comes in, no one leaves. Like I have the same types of people around me, and I know the conversations. Like my gym friends who I'll see and I'll say hi to, it's just about the gym. And then, me and a couple of my friends, we have a spa day every week. Every Thursday we have a spa day. We do nothing on they run businesses. We just enjoy decompressing. We don't talk about business. We just enjoy the spa. And at the weekends, I don't talk about business. I try not to. I just enjoy family time. So I think, again, it's when you're in the world of business, which is hyper competitive and it's great, it's also then recalibrating and like knowing who to talk to. Like, there's no point, again, if you want to earn 100,000, there's no point talking about those dreams to a co-worker. Just know who you talk to, and you learn that as you go along.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever found in business that you've kind of lost your identity perhaps in the early days? Like, when life is so business heavy, did you ever kind of lose who you were outside of business?
No, but there was a period where when I had my first Instagram, so when I started my finance company, I had an Instagram which I was trying to reflect it on, which was called Knightley Investments. And I found that at one point I was getting super sucked into Instagram. This was in about 2017, 2016, perhaps around about that time. And I was getting super sucked into it. And I remember I was talking to my wife about it, and she was like, "You got to come off it." And I remember thinking, "Oh my God, like, am I really doing this?" And I made the conscious decision to come off it for about 7 months. And I just went on LinkedIn because that's where most of my clients were, to be honest with you, at the time. And I came off Instagram for 7 months. No one cared, by the way. That's the other thing I've learned. No one cares. And my life, do you know what? I had this wake up moment, and I was like, when I went back onto Instagram and I started my new one, Aaron Knightley Official, because I ended up losing Knightley Investments to a scammer. When I went back on, I was so disconnected from all social media. It was the best thing I ever done. And then I just approached everything in a commercial mind. So yeah, I did go through a period where I was starting to really lose myself in the social media of Instagram. But when I stepped away for 7 months to regain clarity of what was important and why I was doing it, when I came back, that was kind of when I knew exactly what I needed to do on social media. And it allowed me to monetize on YouTube as well. That gap, because I went all in on YouTube as well.
That's lovely. No, it really is. I thought about social media cleanses so many times, but because we run a social media company, it's actually impossible. Like, we can't get away from social media even if we tried, I don't think. So in terms of like how guests can find you on social media, what are your tags?
Aaron Knightley.
Just Aaron Knightley. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Easy.
It is
Easy.
Aaron Knightley across everything, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've got some other. I've got six Instagrams, but the others are like business. But yeah, it's just Aaron Knightley pretty much on everything. So yeah.
What's the final kind of message that you'd like to leave with the listeners?
My final message and my biggest message, which I always say to everyone: no one cares. No one cares. No one cares what you do. People only care and will listen if you make the money or you impact your lives. So if people are thinking of starting something, or people want to do something, or they want to change a scenario, just remember, no one actually cares whether you do or whether you don't do it. Like, if people watching today never go on to do anything of the stuff that we talk about, I don't care. I'm still getting into my king-size TV bed tonight watching Reacher. I don't care. I honestly don't care. Like, people don't. Like, this is a reality. I always do this, right? This is going to be brutal. Who wants the reality check here?
Harry.
One. Okay. Harry. I'm going to put this on. Who's Harry?
Harry's our camera guy.
I thought I was looking at it. You looked at him. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you, right?
Go on, go for it.
If I pass away tomorrow,
yeah,
will you lose sleep tomorrow night?
Well, you're a nice guy. I'd be sad, but I'd still go to sleep.
You'd still go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's the harsh reality, right there. Right there is the harsh reality of life. And I think when you just know that and you're just like, okay, cool, I've met some great people, but the reality is the living still live and they move on, then you can just kind of get perspective that, like, I need to start doing things for me, because people don't really care. You know, unless you're making the money or you're impacting their lives. Whenever someone visits Jesus, if you haven't made the money or you haven't impacted their life, they probably won't think about you. So bear that in mind and just do you and go all in, and repetition is key. And there's no guarantees in any of this.
I love that. That's powerful.
Yeah, decent. Sick, man. That was cheers.
Awesome, my man.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Mate, that really was
Pleasure.
fire. I enjoyed that.